So now, we're all gathered to hear from her. This month's featured artist is June Woest. June grew up in Kansas, where she describes it as a place of expansive skies and mercurial weather. And this experience informs her work. So please help me in welcoming June Woest.
Hello, and it's so nice to see so many familiar faces and new familiar faces are here, and some new ones, and I'm really happy, and it makes me feel so good to have so many people coming. So, about this show, Weather Inside Out. First of all, it was a really pretty day outside, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that inside everybody's doing well. This show is a series of 4 themes, all related to the weather. And I've been talking to you all, trying to figure out what questions you have that I might be able to answer, because it's taken place over about 5 years, these different 4 themes. One is landscapes. The other one that came after landscapes was weather gear in a flat form. Those are 3-dimensional over there, the landscapes. I turned them into weather devices that would help me navigate bad weather. And then the environmental and the drifting series happened simultaneously. Environmental has to do with the flora and fauna and animals that we find in nature, and they are what I say 97.5% straight photography. Okay. There's very little manipulation except in the way that I arrange the backdrop and the light and the fabrics that I use behind the picture, the scene that I set up. So what you're looking at are images of the weather devices, the 3D weather devices. Over here is drifting, and that's the newest series, and that combines in kind of a hybrid form the navigation device, which is 3-dimensional, and through a process that I'm beginning to understand people get lost in. They don't know how I got to where I was going over there, is complicated. And it has to do with, I was a production potter for 13 years. So I made things that were functional, and I probably wasn't very good at it. And they functioned on a different level for me, and that is where this idea of kind of drifting into a new place and a new atmosphere in my mind happens. And so it includes the ceramic work, because I know when you're looking at them, you're like, where's the clay? I don't see clay here. It looks plastic. It has a funny, wonderful texture, but it's a buttery texture that I love because I get to burnish it and mix it. It's an ancient technique, terra sigillata, that was used in Greek and Roman times to get kind of a impervious clay that would hold water, still seeped, because it doesn't have glaze in it. It doesn't quite reach the maturity of a glaze. So that's what there's clay on every one of the pieces that are physically 3-dimensional. If you look at it, you'll find it. And there's a seam line. I got to learn about throwing on the potter's wheel when after I graduated from Fort Hays, Kansas State College in Hays, Kansas, and I learned how to throw on the potter's wheel and fell in love with that meditative process and found a lot of peace and kindness. by the people that I worked with in the studio. You're always going to find nice people working with clay. And so back to the drifting part. See, I'm drifting. It's what I do best. And I thought about photographing that three-dimensional object, because when we were learning about art, we were always told, photograph your work, photograph your work. You got to keep an archive. You got to know where you came from, where you're going. And so it was a natural process for me to just start photographing my work. I also had some wonderful teachers in graduate school that were photographers. So and they told me, guess what? The internet is coming. And when the internet comes, you're going to be able to see moving pictures in a little square on your computer screen, and it's just going to be wonderful. And so I had no hesitation to get involved with things that have to do with technology. Fire, clay, computers, it all is technology to me. It's all part of, the bronze nature of things back the Iron Age. So I simply take the photograph of the three-dimensional object that you see under the picture hanging on the wall. Then I use my lights and my camera and set up the image, kind of a diorama, and then I use an AI application and I say, fix the weather. So some people start with explaining everything to AI and wanting it to do everything for them, but I've done a lot first, and I just want it to make my weather better. And so those are the pictorial space derived from the three-dimensional object. Okay. I'm very intrigued with making 3D objects flat. And but I always start with the three-dimensional object, and I work with cast clay. And I grew up down the street from the largest ceramic clay supply store in Wichita, Kansas. It was on the corner. They had molds for everything, and the big trucks, 18-wheelers, would come, and they would, all the men on the street would unpack all the big 100-pound bags of clay and load them indoors. And so working with molds is because everything here is sort of a print. It looks like 3D printing. A lot of people say, oh, it's 3D printing. But it's about the 1950s and industries. So there's a social aspect to all of this. It's personal, but it's also social in that I'm concerned about weather and how to make it better for society. And I do challenge the notion that maybe we haven't thought of everything we can do yet to make the weather better. And I will say that I came to this conclusion by working with chemicals and raw materials in the ceramic studio. So it's sort of, I'm not a scientist, but I'm very interested in the materiality that we use to make things go. So I've been doing this for 50 years, and that's my story. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Mindy.
Question, but I have a comment. You said something that was not true. She's a fantastic potter. Like still that she made that I'm going. People walk in and they go, "Well, where did you get this?" You were great. And
Thank
you are
you.
great still.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I had a question, but I think you pretty much answered it. But it was about the difference between the sculptures and the photographs, and how it causes you to look at them differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious about how you got because the shadows make them so much more interesting. And like particularly that one over there, or the shadows are all, like you said that AI helps you with that?
Not over here. The only one, like 98% of this is just straight photography, setting it up in the studio, maybe setting it on the floor, capturing it in a corner where the light. Yeah, I think one of those, my cell phone, because it's all cell phone cameras. I think the thing on my cell phone, the handle on my cell phone, caused some of the shadows over there. So it's kind of creative light and shadow, and I do use a backdrop that I've fallen in love with. Has a nice texture. It's the hood in your cars. If you look at it, it has a nice vertical line texture in it. It makes wonderful backdrops. So I grew up in Kansas, raised by my aunts a lot, and we were at the fabric stores a lot. And so that's, this piece is fabric, and this is, I just wanted to try something bigger and see if I could feel like things are underwater, or like I'm underwater. Some people say that, the age of mechanical reproduction was going to change everything, and the artist wouldn't have a place to function in there. But it's still the same. We're still trying to help ourselves and others feel something. No matter what tool you use, no matter what materials you use, you want to get some feelings out of it. So, yes?
How did you get this on the fabric?
So this is a dye sublimation process, and it's complicated, but I sent the digital file, and it had to have to, there's a lot of printers, printmaking people, industry people, commercial businesses that I have to work with, folks that answer the phone. And so he and I went back and forth. It's a collaboration with these highly technical people. And I went to his shop. It's in Cyprus, and it's just huge printers. You hand them the digital file, they make a backwards copy of it out of pigment that can take heat. It's like, I guess, t-shirts, maybe, when you iron the t-shirt and it sticks to it and then you can wash it. It's that same process, but he's got huge studio and machinery and equipment that's a printer that's half that size. So you take the pigmented print that's backwards and you move it over to the fabric print, and then with heat it captures it in the frontal way. So,
Did this start out as clay?
thank you.
I think that's just beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, I hope it captures that. I'm so afraid of drowning, first of all. I do not want to, that's not the way I want to, but this piece helps me feel like I'm, underwater and watching the growing, living life of things that happen underwater. But it started with a three-dimensional object.
Okay.
So.
I like that it moves.
Yeah, I wanted the fabric to move more, but he only had this one type of fabric, and if I wanted to buy a bolt, it would cost me $10,000. But I just took what he had, and so that was it. Somebody else had a question? Yeah.
I was just curious, when I look at your work, I feel like it's very playful. So I don't know if you could speak to that, just like the element of whimsicality in the pieces, and just they feel fun to me.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of humor in sorrow. and so the three-dimensional pieces were, I lived with a man for 50 years that had a great sense of humor, and I've been able, hopefully he left me with that. And so I can see things getting more serious now as I've moved away from the three-dimensionality. So I would credit him.
So I got another one.
Yes.
Me again. Can you tell us about these? I was looking at them earlier, and I couldn't tell if it's pen and ink, or watercolor, or a photograph, manipulated photograph, but then it says print.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to define. I worked really hard on those labels to come up with something succinct that would fit on a 2.5, 3.5 size label, inch label, and it mimics those things, and clay can do that. Clay has always been a material that can mimic other materials. We can make it look like metal, we can make it look like wood, and so with the printmaking and AI, this was an app that was on a cell phone. It was free, I think, and I just started experimenting with the one that made it. It didn't say it was to make it look like printmaking, but I started going in that direction with the lines, the wonderful lines and the flatness of it. So to me, they're prints, about printmaking, about the process of printmaking and duplicating and reproduction of things. I'm okay with that. I find a lot of directions to go when I start thinking about multiplicity. Yes.
I'm curious, do you ever take an image like the one behind you and illustrate it with a different color palette? Once you create, do you maintain?
The color when I'm thinking about color is when I'm collecting the objects that I make the three-dimensional objects out of. I kind of have a lot of shoe boxes, and I have them, they start out to be color-coded, and then they all get all mixed up, and then it'll take me 3 days to kind of go back through and sort everything. But that's where the color comes in.
But I'm talking about that particular image. If you would have a desire to go back to your printer and say, I'd like the green hues to be.
He'd say, that's your job. He'd say, that's my job.
I didn't know if that was ever.
Yeah, I don't play with color except when I'm making the original object. Yeah.
But this is all lovely, June. It
Thank
really
you.
is.
Thank
for
you, thank you.
explaining it to us.
Yes, yes.
So what you have presented, and this is more a comment, because I helped you a little bit, so I'm very blown away, is the idea that you've always talked about, I've talked about AI doing away with human creativity, but you've embraced it and have made what is very uniquely yours. And I think that is a lesson to all of us, right? In that your bravery in embracing it and learning the technology, and then coming up with something that is in your voice. It's not in AI's voice, it's your voice, your vision. And I think it's fabulous.
Well, thank you, and there's a lot left to be done. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.